Welcome back to the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel. I'm Ed Helinski. Glad you could join us here today. Have another great guest. This from the Jamaica Square in Wurlitzer Park, the Hot Springs, Arkansas, the one and the only Matt Laper. Matt, good to see you, pal. Hope all is well in your world, my friend.
Yeah, everything's going good. Nice seeing you too, Ed. Nice hearing from you.
You're looking good these days. How's life treating you down in Arkansas?
Everything's going well. I just retired, so I'm doing well. Doing a little bit of traveling. Just came back from a baseball, St. Louis Yankee baseball game, so golfing quite a bit. So everything's going well.
Want to talk to you about your North Tonawanda football career. You graduated in 1977. You played on the 75 and 76 team. What do you remember for those days?
Just the how fun it was, and all the friends that we got to meet, and all the teammates that I got to know, and actually I'm still friends with quite a few of the friends that I met playing football and it's like baseball and basketball, and that's probably the biggest thing that goes on. And I hear a lot from a lot of people about the days of playing, and you get to some war stories they're told that are pretty fun to reminisce about the old times.
Do the stories get better and embellished more so the older you get?
Oh yeah, there's always a little added this and added that into the story that you can't really remember that happened or not happened. But for the most part, the stories are pretty true.
In your family, you guys didn't come up through the Tyrol ranks or youth football. Your dad, Big Jim, had a different approach with that. Tell us about the approach that you guys had.
Yeah, my mother and father. My mother's a nurse, as a practitioner in the medical field, and she just thought that it'd be better if we didn't get, not so much beat up, but the injuries we were, growing up, that we were still developing, your bones are still developing and stuff like that. So they wouldn't let us play until we got into ninth grade at Resel. So we played. I mean, we played golf. I mean, not golf, but we played soccer. We played baseball. We played. But the funny thing about this, Ed, is though, we were allowed to play sandlot football all the time, which was probably a little more violent than it was high school and stuff like that, or probably Tyrol. But she just felt that was just better for us. And then and the thing about that is, I believe too, is not so much the injuries and stuff like that, but there's different aspects of, like, if you played soccer when you were kids, you had the eye foot coordination, and and which was helped you with a lot of things in football and in your pass routing, I could guess, and that, or we played a lot of baseball back when we were kids. So it was we learned a lot of different sports other than just football and stuff like that. So I thought it helped us quite a bit.
Your father was quite the football player from Auburn, New York, and then went on to Niagara University, where he had a really good college career. How influential was your father with your high school career?
My parents were, my dad mostly, but it was they were very influential on us. But the thing about them, they let us do what we wanted to play. Like I said, my brother Paul played. He tried playing football in high school, but it didn't work for him. So he swam and played tennis, and he was a very good tennis player. Whereas me and John and Chris, we played football, and John didn't play really basketball, but me and Chris played basketball, and John played football and baseball, and then Chris played basketball and football. So he didn't influence the way it pushed us in any sport, but he stood by us and he backed us, and he made sure that we made all of our games, and he we just wanted to make him proud of us, how we did things. And I thought he brought us up correctly on a good sportsmanship, which is the big thing, there's a sportsmanship of the game and how to treat the game. And, it is at the end, it's still a game. It's just a sport, but you learn there's a lot of living things, or you learned a lot from sports, especially, how to treat people and how to respect the game and respect yourself and respect the guy, your teammates, and even the guys that didn't play a lot and stuff like that. It was always a team, so you always brought them along, and you didn't treat them any better than or any worse than a guy that started, or a guy that was that didn't play a lot. And that's for me was the way what he influenced on me was that the team aspect and the camaraderie and the respect for each other.
I want to talk to you about your house full of boys, the four of you, Paul, John, yourself, and Chris. How competitive were you guys?
Oh, we were very competitive. There wasn't a game we didn't play. We even made games up back in the backyard and stuff like that. And if we picked sides, if we were on other teams, we played against each other, like sandlot and softball and basketball. No matter what game we played, what sport we did, or what we tried doing, we tried winning. And it was always the team aspect. When there was only the four of us, it was me and John versus Paul and Chris. Me and John were the bigger of the two guys, and Paul and Chris were the faster of the guys. What would happen was our strategy was, okay, we can't catch them, so we have to beat them up at the line of scrimmage, or in basketball, we beat them up under the basket. So we tire them out that way, because there's no way we could play, run and gun with them, because they beat us all the time because they were so much faster than us. But we had a different aspect of the game, and that's how we would do it that way. Whether it was under the basket beating them up, or hold them on the line and try and they couldn't go out for a pass, or you had that quick rush where we didn't really count all the way to like 3. You're already running at 2.5. So because you couldn't catch them once they started running, you couldn't catch them. So we had to take every advantage you could back in those days.
Walk me through your high school career, starting at freshman year at Resel, all the way through your senior year.
Resel was fun. We had fun at Resel. I played, football. And we were undefeated at Resel, and the basketball team we had a very good, Mr. Belvis was our basketball coach. And Charlie, actually, I wasn't a very good basketball player back in those days, but I got with Charlie Chandra, and he actually sat down with me because what they did back in those days was, which was good. The freshmen, like the varsity would come down and the JV would come down and they'd scrimmage us. And which was really cool, because you're playing against the older players that were very good. You looked up to them, and they taught you a lot. So Charlie Shawn pulled me off the side. I can still remember this to this day, in 9th grade, and we sat on the side of the baskets, and we just sat there on one of the basketball, and we just sat there and I did shot after shot after shot. He showed me how to shoot the ball, how to place my hands, the dribble, and then he was very influential in my basketball career, and as a freshman. Then like I said, as I growing up, I looked up to the bigger guys, Paul Suskeniak and Wilbur and Wilbur Wood and guys like that were that I wanted to not be like, but I wanted to be as good as those guys. I wanted to try to practice. We'd go down to the Mohr, not Memorial, but to Walter Pool. There's a basketball court was right behind the pool, and of course Teddy Moore ran the pool. So me and Kerry Freeling, I remember going down there all the time. We'd play one-on-one for hours and hours and hours, and Teddy'd come out every once in a while and say just give a hint here, a hint there, but he'd sit there and watch us, and he'd give us some tips on what to do and what not to do. But that's how we play. Back then, those days, what you did, you could always go somewhere in the neighborhood, whether it was Walter Park, Memorial Pool, or down in the avenues. And, there's a pickup game somewhere playing something, whether it was sandlot football or a baseball game or a basketball game. And that's, it was fun back in those days, because we had different teams played, Walter Park played the avenues, and you played with guys against Memorial Pool, and then you had different teams. And because I was just talking to Al Ridge just the other day, and Dave Scott and them, how they, we did that, and we're reminisce about it over a little adult beverage area at Climax, and talking about how we did stuff like that back in the days. That you had these little leagues and then I sit on the sidelines and watch these guys, and it's like, gosh. These guys are good, and that's and you learned a lot from it, and finally let you play, and and it was a fun time back in those days.
Who did you look up to on the NT football program?
Well, probably my biggest influence, as I say, was my brother John, because I was 1 year behind him, and that was the biggest. My biggest influence was him. But there was also there was John Ross, who I looked up to a lot, and there was Scott Whitmore. He played tight end, and I looked up to him, and Greg Webb, and like John's friends were my friends. They took me kind of under their wing, and I hung out with them, and stuff like that. And it was a very good influence back in those days.
Describe playing for Coach Chuck Ramsey during your junior and senior year.
It was fun. I mean, it was fun. He was a coach that, he let you play your game, and like I can remember my senior years a lot. I know my junior year, well, because I actually liked him as a quarterback. He threw me the ball a lot, which was fun back in those days. But he let you change the plays up the line scrimmage, and if you see something different, and would come back in the huddle and say, Jeff, hey, I'm open, or my quarterback back then, senior year, was Rogers, and I go, hey Jeff, hey, I can, throw me a little slant pattern, and this guy's 15 yards off of me, and he'd come in and we'd do it, and Chuck would come, what are you guys doing? He says, well, that wasn't the play I called, but Chuck, it worked, and he didn't get down there because it was nice that he let you the freedom of doing stuff like that. I mean, you couldn't do it all the time, but it was a good coach to play under. I enjoyed playing with Coach Ramsey.
Your defensive coordinator was Chuck Williams.
Yes.
What do you remember about Chuck and how he coached?
Chuck, I like Chuck because he has the big arms and the big weightlifter, and he'd always keep your outside shoulder open and stuff like that, and make sure the guy didn't get around you, and Chuck is a very good, to me, he made you think about the position and how to play the positions. When I played, because I played defensive end and up, and tight end, and the blocking scheme and stuff like that. How he was smart, and how you eyed up your opponent. You like, if the guy was a smaller guy, or you couldn't hit him down low. So you just, even if you got in his way, he goes, man, if you get in his way, he can't make the play. Even if you can't get there, somehow get your body between him and the running back. Or, if you're blocking him, make sure your body's between those guys so that, they can't make the play no matter how you do it. And the strategy was one of his big things was, he was a strategic guy that taught you the fundamentals of the game. And I believe that fundamentals of any game, whether it's football or baseball or basketball, is important. If you learn the fundamentals of the game, the trick stuff and the shooting stuff becomes a second nature to you, and the fundamentals of the game become second nature to you. And that's, to me, is how you learn the game. Is you start from the fundamentals and you learn that first, and then you expand on that.
What do you recall and remember about Dave Anastasi, because he was the offensive line coach back then?
Yes. Oh, he was fun. He was good. He was good. Like I said, the blocking schemes he had when you're pulling guard, and you actually had to pull. I would go into motion quite a bit, blocking. Sweeps and stuff like that. And he always said you keep your heads on a swivel, because you're always looking for that first person to hit or to open the hole up, or what he would do. And he was good about the fundamentals of the game and how to block and how to in your motions, and how to take out a linebacker. If you go through the line, make sure you take that linebacker out, because that's the guy that's going to make the play, because your linemen are all stuff up. And so as a tight end, my major thing was probably linebackers, and they were the hardest ones to block because they're always in motion. But he was very good at setting up the plays and telling you how to position yourself to make that block, or to make that catch, or whatever you had to do or the blitzing lineman or the blitzing linebacker. Your eyes are always on a swivel. Make sure that guy is not blitzing. If he is, you have to step in and take the inside guy. So he's very good. I liked him a lot. I love playing for those guys.
What was tougher, practice or the actual game?
Well, it was always practice, because the actual game, you're so hyped up and you just want to get out there and play. But practice was always the toughest, because I remember a couple of practices, and then in my junior year, and this when I was just in the beginning of the year, and I was playing tight end, and I had to beat out the senior guys, and I went out for a couple of pass routes, and Jeff Bentley would throw the ball down the field, and I didn't even finish my route. I just stopped running because I knew the play wasn't supposed to go to me, but Jeff improvised and threw the ball down the field, and I wasn't nowhere to be found. I come back in the huddle, and I can remember this day, my brother grabbing my face mask and telling me, "What the hell you doing?" He goes, "You run every play as like the ball is going to go. You're going to be, they're throwing the ball to you. This is no half-ass stuff." So, and from that day on, even if I knew the play was going left, or if my route was to push to go after the safety and make him, to get him out of the play. And that's the thing that my brother taught me was, you run the plays out as if the ball is going to you, so that guy has to guard you, so he doesn't get in the play. And that was one of the big things I learned from that.
How much weight training was involved, or that took place back then in high school for you?
Not for me. I don't know. Not much, because I don't know. I mean, a lot of my friends were in the weight room a lot, and I'd go to the weight room, but it bored me because I needed that stimulation of running or catching or doing something, instead of just taking this steel bar and lifting it up. But nowadays, if I think back, I go, maybe I should have stayed longer into the weight room and stuff like that. But to me, I did it more for the agility, and not so much to bulk, but for the agility to keep, for like the stretching exercise and stuff like that in the weight room, more than just lifting weights. But nowadays, you have to lift weights because these guys they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster, and the reason they're doing that is they're in the weight rooms, they're doing all that kind of stuff in the weight room.
You played at George Vedder Field behind the old Payne Junior High School. In your opinion, was that one of the best fields you ever played on? And what was it like playing on some of the other fields in Western New York?
I love George Vedder Stadium. I mean, I thought that was the predominant field because the grass was it was so thick and so soft. And when you landed, you didn't bounce like these turf fields nowadays. And I never played on a turf field. Well, I did just a little bit here and there, but never in high school and never. But I can't see bouncing on those fields and the injuries. And I think Vedder was just a great field with the crown. It could be pouring rain, and the field wouldn't get muddy. Down the middle probably would play most, but the field would never hold water or anything like that. Where you played it. Other fields, you're running like I remember playing in Lancaster. It was like playing in a swamp because the field didn't drain. You're out there playing in the flat field, and it was like the stands weren't, the stands were just the metal stands. There was no like, I don't know, what would you call the ambiance of the field and the history of that field being there for so long, and then that's what I just really enjoyed that field a lot. And like I said, Lewis and Porter were just out in the middle behind the high school, and just out there nowhere. Lancaster out there nowhere, Bill, and no historical value, just with the Colonel Payne School right in front of you, and the scoreboard on the school, and run out there in the stands, or those stands with both same size on both sides. It held a lot of people, and it was a great field to play on, especially under the lights. It was just a great field to play on. I always loved them. I had fond memories of Vedder Stadium.
With North Tonawanda, you played in front of some really big crowds. I mean, Friday night was huge in NT for high school football, and especially during TNT. Did it give you a little bit more incentive to play better in front of a big crowd at home, or what was your feelings like at that point playing at home?
You know what? It did hype you up a lot. To me, it did. I mean, you get so pumped up when you come out there, and it's so loud, and the crowd is so big. I mean, you come out there, and there's a standing room around the whole track is just full of people. And you're talking 2 or 3 deep, and the stands are packed when you're playing in front of 13,000 people. Because I think it was in a paper I just read. Actually went back and reminisced. Had some old clippings that I was given a long time ago. And I remember the junior, it was 13,000. Senior, it was a pouring rainstorm in Tonawanda, but they still had 6,000 people come out to the games. It was just fun because plus it was a rivalry, and you wanted to say you always wanted to be one up on Tonawanda. And and you got to meet good friends over that side of the field, because I remember talking to Lumpy Fisher. He was the quarterback back then, and I played baseball with him probably 3 or 4 years after that. And we sit down and talk, and it was just a fun time. But it actually pumped you up big time playing in big crowds like that, and have everyone behind you and the big games and stuff like that.
Did you feel the pressure of the TNT game that you didn't want to lose? Be on the losing end of that?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that because it's you know, it's like the Yankees versus the Boston Red Sox. You know, you just can't lose against the Red Sox if you're a Yankees fan, and you can't lose against the Yankees if you're a Boston fan. And that's the same thing we thought back in those days. You know, because they had the parades. You had back in the day. I don't know if they still do it. You know, you had the bonfires. You know, at your school, and they had the Friday before that Friday of the game. They had a luncheon. You know, it was in Tonawanda. You went to Tonawanda, had lunch with both teams, the captains, and we get up there and have a little speech, and the coaches are talking. You had a luncheon, every year before the TNT game, and it was just very enjoyable. And you had the car parade back in the day, and where and NT have their car parade in Tonawanda. You parade to the luncheons and stuff like that. It was fun. It was a big rivalry, and it was enjoyable.
How good was the equipment back in high school?
You know what? I can remember they first came out with the air helmets, and then they had so many air helmets, and they were pumping up these air helmets, but you still had to wear, back in those days, you still wear the full girdle and the knee pads and the thigh pads and stuff like that. But the equipment wasn't bad. I mean, to me, at that time, it wasn't bad. I'm sure it's gotten so much better nowadays, but it was different. It was heavy. But I remember John Chisera and them when I played at Resel. I played split end at Resel, and they gave me a pair of quarterback shoulder pads because all they had was like linemen, these big pads, and I was like, gosh, because actually the quarterback, because the pads were so much lighter and you could move your arms a lot better. I'm like, God, these pads are so much better, and that's where they took care of me back then. But it was funny how they had different stuff like that.
Of the four boys, who's the best athlete?
Well, I like to say myself, but I think it was my brother Chris. I mean, it's funny because we talk about that once in a while. Or Paul was a great swimmer and he played tennis in college and swam in college. He was a very good tennis player, lefty. And, John, with John with going to college and winning Division III and then stuff like that. But the one thing I could throw in their faces is that, hey, I won outstanding senior athlete. I won the Eldridge Club Award and outstanding senior lineman. And then, but I do believe Chris, I'll say, I believe Chris was the better of the athletes because he was just so nimble and so quick. And he could take a soccer ball and do things with a soccer ball that we couldn't think about doing. And the moves he had as a wide receiver and the basketball, dribbling a basketball and the passes he made behind the back and between the legs. So he was just, I believe he was the best athlete of all of us.
What do you tell people if you're at a party in Hot Springs, Arkansas, and you got talking about high school football? What do you tell them about North Tonawanda and its tradition?
Because it's funny that you say that because like, work, like when I came down and started working, I got to know the guys down here and they're talking about, now that high school's actually baseball or football season is coming up and, there's no pro team here. So it's college and college football is a big thing, but high school football is huge in the South. And, they say the whole city comes out like, Magnaco is a little town next to us. And, I think the school's got maybe a couple, I think the graduate class, like 100, whatever, but they'll have the whole town will come out, the town to a couple thousand people. But the funny thing is I tell them about our city too, and playing football on Friday nights and how big our crowds were and how huge our schools got behind us and the marching band. I was reading it, our old articles. I said, like I told you before, our band in our senior year was 165 members, which is a huge band, and it's stuff like that. So that just shows you how big it is that. And for Friday Night Football, how the town got together and everybody comes out and plays, and the parties afterwards, and the preparation before the games, and up that whole week of playing and practicing and stuff like that. And I think it's just, that's what I tell them, because you guys are big down here, but it's huge up in Western New York. Football's huge up in Western New York, and some of the guys that played, they went on to play high school, had great high school careers too. There's quite a few people that come from our area that played, not even good college, but some went on to the pros.
How hard was it for you to take off the helmet and take off the baseball spike when you finished high school?
It was pretty difficult because what is funny though is that even after we stopped playing high school, we still played your summer baseball and softball league, but we also had a Saturday morning flag football league that I played with my brother John, my brother John, because he was helping like John Ross, the Rossi brothers, Greg Webb, and Mark Fitzgerald and Mark Norris, the guys that played football, and we'd play on Friday morning or Saturday mornings at the old Bishop Gibbons, and then we played the touch football league up in Buffalo, and our quarterback was Rick Casada, who won the Grey Cup, and he was our quarterback a couple of years playing flag football, and I guess I never took it off for a long time, but it just to continue on with that camaraderie with people and how much fun we had, after college, after high school. But it was difficult because it was such a fun time in my life.
Were you a better baseball player or a better football player?
I don't know. Well, I believe I was a better. I like football more. I think I could have been, but I love the game of baseball. I love because I was a pitcher and I played first, but I just love that being in charge and the game, and and it's just the excitement of the game. Even though there wasn't a lot of fans of baseball, I just love that aspect of baseball. But I think I was a better football. I mean, I like baseball too. Like I said, one way or the other, I like baseball a lot. But I think I was better at football, but I love baseball better.
If you had to do it all over again, would you make any changes in your high school career, or if so, what changes would you make?
Probably the biggest change I'd make is I think I'd be more involved in the weight room like these kids are nowadays. I see them, just as strong because I never really got hurt, and in high school, and I believe I never got really hurt because of the agility, and I wasn't so bulky, but I would probably do more in the weight room, and then another thing in high school, like these guys play, like these different sports, and I wish I probably would have like gotten more involved, like with go watching the soccer team. I mean, being more of a spectator of the other sports like they were for football, go and watch the soccer team or go and watch the volleyball team and stuff like that, more involved in that aspect of it and cheering them on like they cheered us on in football, and, at the stadium and stuff like that.
Just have a few minutes left, Matt Laper. The forum is yours. What haven't we talked about that you'd like to talk about?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how the kids are nowadays. I mean, I'm hearing, like, even here in Hot Springs, the kids, like the kids coming up, the schools don't have the big football programs like they used to. They're instead of 11-man teams now, they're going down to 8-man football, which is good. They're still getting them involved, but I think the kids are playing more soccer and stuff like that, golf, which is huge, and I believe I think that's great for them, and but probably the biggest thing, the change is just that's what I would probably be more involved in. Let's say that.
Matt Laper, I want to thank you so much. This is a wonderful conversation. As people don't know, this is take 2 that we're doing with this. So I wish you well. Take care of yourself in Hot Springs. And once again, thank you for joining me today on the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel.
I'd appreciate it. And, I know you live in Auburn now. That's where my dad grew up. And I spent many summers with my grandparents and my cousins and on the Finger Lakes and in Auburn and Cuga Lake. It was a big one. And Seneca Lake, my aunt still lives over on Cuga Lake. And it's a great community up there. And it's funny that, you're there because it brings back fond memories where you live at now. And thank you for your time and your little talk.
I live right around the corner from your grandparents' house. Matt, be well. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.